So, let's dive into one of the most iconic openings in all of literature, The Great Gatsby. We're going to peel back the layers and piece together the clues to solve the mystery that's right there from the very first pages. Who on earth is Jay Gatsby, and what is he really after?
The whole story kicks off with this piece of advice given to our narrator. And it's so important because it tells us right up front to hold back on judging people. Which is kind of funny, right? Because this entire book is going to be about judging people based on how much money they have, where they come from, and who they pretend to be.
And that little nugget of wisdom throws us right into the summer of 1922, a place that's all about dazzling appearances and some seriously deep social divides. So who's showing us around this world? That would be this guy, Nick Carraway. Now, he's from a good family, went to Yale, all that, but he's a total newbie to the East Coast scene. He's an outsider looking in, which, makes him the perfect guide for us.
Okay, so the first thing you need to get your head around is the lay of the land. You've got West Egg, which is for the flashy new money folks. And then, right across the bay, you have East Egg. That's the super fashionable home of the old money aristocrats. And let me tell you, this isn't just about geography, it's a map of a social battlefield.
And where Nick lives is just fascinating. He's in what he calls a cardboard bungalow, costing him $80 a month. But it's literally sandwiched between these gigantic millionaire palaces. And his next-door neighbor, well, he owns the biggest, most over-the-top mansion of them all. And from this perfect spot, Nick gets his very first glimpse of the man himself. One night, he sees a figure come out of the mansion, and he's not looking up at the stars, no. He's reaching his arms out towards something across the water, something Nick can just barely see, a single green light, way off in the distance. And then, poof, the guy's gone.
But before we can figure out what that was all about, Nick yanks us across the bay. We're going into the world that green light was pointing at, the prim and proper old money society of East Egg.
So here we meet Nick's cousin, Daisy, and her husband, Tom Buchanan. And Tom, well, Tom's a force. He's this big ex-football star, rolling in money, and Nick's first impression is just pure brute force. This is not a guy you want to mess with. And then there's Daisy. She's gorgeous, she's charming, her voice just pulls you in. But her very first words feel fake. It's like her happiness is this big performance she's putting on, and she's struggling to remember her lines.
And that perfect polished surface, yeah, it doesn't last. In the middle of dinner, the phone rings, and you could cut the tension with a knife. Everyone at that table knows exactly who it is. Tom's mistress, calling from the city. The ugly reality of their marriage is just right there.
But the real jaw-dropper, the moment that tells you everything, is when Daisy talks to Nick about her little girl. This is what she hopes for her daughter. Think about that. It's such a shocking, sad thing to say, and it just screams how trapped and unhappy she feels in her own life.
Okay, so let's get out of that stuffy, tense dining room and head back across the bay. We're leaving East Egg behind because it's time to go to a party at the mansion next door.
And when I say party, I mean party. We're talking absolute blowouts. Every single weekend, his house is overflowing with people. Live orchestras, caterers, more champagne than you can possibly imagine. It's a full-on carnival.
But here's the wild part. The guy throwing these epic parties, nobody's ever met him. Nobody knows who he is. So what do? They make stuff up. The rumors are insane. He killed a guy. He was a spy. He's related to German royalty. The stories are all over the place.
Now, Nick is different. He's one of the very few people who actually got a real invitation.
So naturally, he figures he should at least go find his host and say thanks. But good luck with that. He asks around and people just stare at him. The host is a complete ghost at his own party.
Finally, he's just kind of standing there and strikes up a conversation with a guy who looks about his age. And what do you know? They start talking and realize they were in the same division in the war. For just a minute, in the sea of strangers, there's this one real human connection.
So Nick mentions offhand, I live right next door and I haven't even laid eyes on this Gatsby fella. And the man looks at him, kind of smiles and says, I'm Gatsby. No fireworks, no big announcement, just that.
And Nick immediately gets it. He understands the magic of this guy. It's his smile. But it's more than a smile. It's this look that makes you feel like he totally gets you, believes in you, and is on your side 100%. It's absolutely magnetic.
So, we finally met the man behind the myth. But that just makes things more confusing, doesn't it? Why all the parties? Why this house specifically? Well, hold on, because the final, most important piece of the puzzle is about to fall right into place.
And the big secret? It doesn't even come from Gatsby. It comes from Jordan Baker. Remember her from that awkward dinner? A few weeks later, she tells Nick a story she calls the most amazing thing, and it connects every single dot.
Jordan lays out this whole backstory from 5 years earlier. See, back in 1917, Daisy was in love with a young Army officer. His name was GATSBY. He was handsome and charming, but he had no money. He had to go off to war, and Daisy swore she would wait for him. But she didn't.
And here it is, the answer to everything. Gatsby didn't just stumble upon that house. It wasn't random. He bought that specific mansion for one reason, and one reason only, so he would be right across the water from Daisy.
And just like that, it all makes perfect sense. The colossal mansion, the roaring parties, the orchestras, the endless booze. It was never for the hundreds of guests. It was all a show. A giant, glittering stage built for an audience of one, on the desperate hope that she might just see the lights and wander over one night.
And that's what the entire rest of the story is about. Gatsby has built this entire world, this fortune, this fantasy, all based on a memory from 5 years ago. He's finally got her attention. But it leaves us with the one huge question. After all this time, can you really go back and reclaim the past?